Hi, everyone. This is the acyuta-bhava from Nightlight Astrology, and today we're going to take a look at the new moon in the sign of Libra. So I'm excited about this new moon cycle because what we're seeing is a cycle that will evolve and change quite a bit from the beginning to the end. And Venus, as the planetary host of the moon cycle, also is picking up dignity as the cycle goes on, which means Venus themes should grow and become stronger as the cycle goes on, and Mars-like themes are going to start to die down. So, let me give you the real-time clock picture of this, and we'll unpack it. So here is the conjunction you can see forming right now between the sun and the moon in Libra. That's our new moon. And that means that Venus is the host. Um, every lunar cycle is planted, as it were, in a sign. And the promise of the cycle evolves and develops usually across the sign, the planetary contraries involved in the sign axis. For example, Libra's planetary ruler is Venus, and its opposite Aries is ruled by Mars. So you have kind of a Venus-Mars dynamic going on this month. And last month, if we go back a little bit, say it's in Virgo, then you've got a Mercury dynamic going on, and Mercury's opposite to Jupiter. So sometimes you'll see those themes being spread out somehow throughout the ups and downs of the lunar cycle. Now, in this cycle, we have a Venus dynamic, and that Venus dynamic initially is not so great. You have Venus in her fall in Virgo right now, and Venus will, therefore, at the outset of this cycle, Venus isn't in the greatest shape. And not only that, but Venus is opposing Neptune at the very start of the cycle. So the potential for there to be painful experiences in love and relationships where some degree of disillusionment presents itself is a real possibility here. Venus opposite Neptune is often a signifier of longing for something that one doesn't have, or brokenheartedness, or unrequited love, or fantasies that lack substance, as well as just general romantic intoxication. And because of Venus's debility, there can also be just an aura of self-loathing, of embarrassment, or of insecurity that is also present in relationships that causes us to not see ourselves or others clearly. And so that's one of the early things that we're looking at in this lunar cycle that could be a little bit of a challenge. Now, you could add in that the early part of this cycle is also toned by the need for redemption, healing, saving, sacrifice, martyrs, helpers, healers. But you want to be careful, because when Venus is in Virgo, the ancient view of the ups and downs of the planets as they go through their different dignity positions would typically mean that Venus is on hard times right now, and therefore may need help. How much help can you give? How much room do you have to sacrifice for someone else or something else? Sometimes making a sacrifice is noble. Sometimes you could drain yourself or hurt yourself in the process. Well, some of those questions might be important at the very beginning, and there's a real heroic energy in the air with Mars retrograde squaring Jupiter at the beginning of this dynamic as well. So heroism, sacrifice, romance, and also the blend between the two images that are very powerful. One is the strong person, Mars and Jupiter, but Mars is retrograde and Venus is opposite Neptune. So what happens when images of strength collapse? What happens when images of power and might are called into question? Or, in a very simple sense, I do a lot of readings when you'll see a father figure or a boss or someone that you look up to, a coach or a teacher or something like that, that will get sick, or their shadow side might come out a little bit or something like that. And sometimes these moments, although they can be disappointing, if we are careful not to put people up on pedestals in our lives in general, these moments of someone or something strong that temporarily weakens or shows its vulnerable side can be really redemptive and healing for us personally, because it helps us to embrace and accept our own weaknesses. And it also helps us when we see people who are weak overcoming certain things and rising up and becoming strong despite weaknesses or challenges. It helps us to overcome our own issues. And there's also the potential here for heroism to be mixed with some blend of grace or charity or help for others. So that's something that comes through at the very beginning of this transit. And I like it. I like this. I like this kind of, you got also, you can see, here's what I was trying to say. Jupiter is in a sextile with Neptune right now, pretty close. So the question of faith and how we put faith and goodness into action, and the difference between the kind of efforts or gestures that we make out of a desire to be seen and validated or praised, or if you do something good and you get a little merit badge for it right now, that wouldn't be a surprise. But on the other hand, there's a question in the midst of this with Venus opposite Neptune about sincerity and motivation. It's very possible. Sometimes, we become martyrs and we fall on our swords and try to do the good thing because, inside we feel insecure and we think that doing such things may get others to see us or validate us or like us more. So those are all complex issues that are bound together by the presence of several aspects at the beginning of this lunar cycle happening at once. Venus opposite Neptune, Mars retrograde square Jupiter, and even Jupiter in a sextile with Neptune. But the beginning is a little, it's definitely, there's things that are damaged or maybe in need of saving or helping or healing. And there's issues around, that something that's very machismo, like Mars, Jupiter, versus something that might be a little bit more weak, vulnerable. And the juxtaposition of those two images generally is what I feel. I feel the safest, most general thing we can say is that there's these two images in the sky at the beginning of the lunar transit, sort of, strong man, Mars, Jupiter, but Mars is retrograde. So is it strong, or is it has the image of strength gone too far? Is it overcompensating for something? And then Venus opposite Neptune. I'm longing for something. I need something. I want something. I'm weak. I'm like a broken lover, a dog howling for its master, And Venus Neptune is also about disillusionment and loss. It's very Shakespearean, the Venus opposite Neptune transit right now. But it's very brief. So this lasts just very briefly. If you can see this playing out, for example, if I fast forward the clock just a little bit, you'll see that Venus passes over the opposition to Neptune. By the end of the weekend, really, it's passed, and Mars and Pluto should be finished by about the middle of next week. So, a little bit less than a week of these particular energies at the start of the lunar cycle. Then we get into a moment that is pretty profound, because remember, the lunar cycle in general wants Venusian things. It wants peace, harmony, agreement. It wants what you could say is that it's interested in finding the pleasant or the more the smoother way of getting through things. And that's an interesting contrast, of course, to what Mars has been all about for the past couple of weeks with these very powerful squares to Saturn, Pluto, Jupiter, and so forth. Now, Mars, this is all happening, by the way, as Mercury retrograde is also, over the next couple of days, going to oppose Uranus. So it feels to me like a real sort of days of our lives scenario over the next 4 or 5, 6 days, because Mercury is also opposing Uranus and bringing some real unexpected twists and turns and revelations and things coming to the surface that you didn't see, or unexpected things happening and then having to respond to them. And am I going to respond heroically, or is the moment asking me to be more vulnerable and to find a more compassionate, gentle, healing, sensitive way? Do I bulldoze through something, or do I find the tactful, peaceful solution? And maybe there's a combination of both. But the twists and turns of Uranus and Mercury retrograde in the mix are like profound, right? So this is the second half of about 2 weeks that you've heard me talking about over the past week that are really loud, busy astrology. But now it's taking this really interesting Venusian twist, right? Okay, so watch what happens. You get into like the first quarter of the lunar cycle, and you're going to see the moon. The sun is culminating now in Libra, about to change into Scorpio. But we're paying attention to Venus for the whole moon cycle, remember, so we're going to come back to that in a minute. But now you've got a first quarter moon where the moon in Capricorn, this is end of next week, say Thursday, is going to go right through the stellium of Jupiter, Pluto, Saturn, square to Mars, square to the sun. And this is a very powerful moment where I would call it a kind of crossroads. There's a lot of emphasis on kind of the conservative, more, hard practical qualities of Saturn and Capricorn. Remember, the sun in Libra is the exaltation of Saturn. So you're thinking about kind of growing up, maturing, doing the practical, reasonable, responsible things, kind of tightening your belt and your boots and being like, okay, there's something that I've really got to take care of, and there's no excuses. And it's that kind of energy around toward the end of next week. And that is accompanied, of course, by the sun then changing into Scorpio, which is a Mars-ruled sign. So there's a lot of by the end of next week, there's a lot of concrete actions being taken and kind of, I have to do what I have to do coming through. Now that might seem like everything's shifting back into the Mars, kind of the Mars-Saturn territory of Aries Capricorn, the sun's in Scorpio, very Marsy and so forth. But what's happening is it's setting the stage for Venus to enter Libra, which is going to happen around October 28th. Now, right as that occurs, right when that happens, Mercury also retrogrades back into Libra. So suddenly you have this very strong emphasis on Libra and Venus, and with a very empowered Venus. And what's happening in the meantime? Well, you are pushing into a full moon in Scorpio in Taurus that is going to amplify the Venus-Mars tension again, but with an exalted moon in Taurus conjoined with Uranus. And now check this out, with Mercury and Venus in Libra, and those two planets, Mercury especially, squaring Saturn, and Venus again picking up a lot of dignity. This has the feeling of a very powerful kind of Venusian breakthrough. A Venusian breakthrough would probably show up in terms of agreement being reached, a feeling of relief or resolution of some conflict that's been brewing for a while. If you've been having to work and struggle through some kind of conflict or hardship or obstacle, you're finally starting to feel like there's some breakthroughs that are moving you forward. So I really like this as like a very powerful full moon turning point in the cycle ahead, where Venus starts to pick up a ton of dignity. And you can see that this is a breakthrough moment, an aha moment, a moment where we start to feel freer than we've been feeling, because the sun also opposes Uranus. And when that happens across the Mars Venus axis of Scorpio and Taurus, with the moon in its exaltation in Venus's sign, you're looking at a breakthrough. And this is a breakthrough that starts to take away the Mars-like oppositions and conflicts that we've been having. Why? Because look what happens. If you push this forward just a little bit, you're going to see Mercury turn direct in Venus's sign right around election day here in the United States. And that's in a square to Saturn, which has the look and feeling of kind of fair, just situation, a fairness or wiseness, sincerity, intelligence, and harmony. So the sort of nice Saturn Mercury dynamic, and Mercury in Libra overcoming Saturn. So it's real like sensible toward the end of this, as the end of this cycle is pushing on. And then what you see is finally Venus and Mars have this opposition to one another. And this is where it all culminates. Everything that we've been stressed out about for a few months is going to be finally sort of culminating. This happens right as the last quarter moon comes through in Leo, and the kind of bringing resolution to things. And, empowered Venus crosses over that opposition marker to Mars. And then what happens? Mars turns direct. Just a couple days later, Mars is going to station and turn direct in the sky. And then we have a new moon in Scorpio with a Mars direct. And then, okay, at that point, you're really going to see a momentum shift. Everywhere from the full moon of this moon cycle on the 31st of October through mid-November, you're talking about a turnaround. There's a big turning point that happens, and that the kind of heavy blockage of Mars and Saturn and the Mars retrograde should start to loosen. And again, why is this? Because we have a really empowered Venus. And what's starting to happen, remember, Venus is the ruler of the cycle. Venus starts squaring Pluto, starts squaring Jupiter, starts squaring Saturn, all from the overcoming position. And then as this new moon cycle presses on, right, then eventually what you're going to see, and this is pretty promising as well, is you're also seeing this hugely cathartic moment in the midst of all of this. Right as that opposition from Venus and Mars happens, Jupiter and Pluto will get together in Capricorn as well. And that should be a very powerful moment of catharsis, even if some of this is not going to be entirely easy, but the turning point that you've been waiting for, if you feel like there's been this weighty feeling of being held back by something or having to sort of sludge through some kind of difficult terrain, again, the Venus energy really picks up, and it's pretty cathartic by the end of the lunar cycle. So, and we could go forward from there. There's lots more to look forward to. Like, for example, it's by about November 22nd, the sun is going to move into Sagittarius, which gets into a Jupiter-ruled sign. And you know what's promising about that? By the end of that sun's entrance into Jupiter's sign, Jupiter gets out of its fall in Capricorn, and then we see a much improved Jupiter by the end of the year. So I'm telling all of my clients right now, there's a big pick-me-up coming, I think, by the end of the year, even though we also have Jupiter-Pluto, which clearly is going to coincide with a catharsis, in the next month. That's not entirely easy. Like, we see the pandemic numbers rising everywhere right now, the number of infections and deaths and so forth. So, but there is this, on a more interpersonal level, sort of set the pandemic aside for right now, there is this sense of a pretty significant catharsis and release over the next couple of weeks, and it does turn in Venus's favor by the end. So that's how I'm seeing the new moon in Libra. And I apologize because I didn't have notes today. I'm not speaking off from notes, so I'm a little all over the place. But I wanted to get this out. My mom is here visiting right now, so I didn't have my usual morning routine to plan. But grandma came, and the girls are really happy. And it snowed for the first time in Minneapolis today this season. I was like blown away. I was like, oh my God, it's snowing. And it was really cute. Like, in Maryland, don't get snow a lot since my daughter's been born in 2015. There was some snow actually her first year, but she saw it this morning and she was so excited, and she got everything, got all dressed, and she went, she was like, I have to have my umbrella. And we were like, no, you just put your hat on. You just go out in it. And she was like, no, it's raining snow. I have to have an umbrella. It was really, really cute. So, yeah, I can't wait to see what it's like for them when, and I can take them sledding and stuff like that. Anyway, I don't know why I'm going on about this, but I hope you guys have a great new moon. Tell me what you're seeing and experiencing. Remember, this new moon today is square to Pluto. It's square to Saturn. It's opposite Mars retrograde. The sun is still in the enclosure. You've got Mercury retrograde going back into the opposition with Uranus. But I promise you, this is a Venus cycle, and about halfway through the cycle, you're going to see a breakthrough, and that element of harmony, resolution, peace, more pleasant things will definitely be a part of how the second half of the cycle and beyond starts advancing. Especially once the sun gets into Sagittarius this year, Pluto Jupiter has passed, and you start getting Jupiter moving out of its fall in Capricorn. I think that it's going to be really fun to do a series on Jupiter's entrance into Aquarius, where it's going to conjoin immediately with Saturn. That's a major astrological event in December that we'll be talking about. And I think it gives us a lot of room for eagerness about the future. Anyway, so don't forget that my new class, Ancient Astrology for the Modern Mystic, starts on November 14th. We still have space available, so please feel free to sign up. There are payment plans if you need it. There is need-based tuition if you're struggling, especially due to COVID-19. There's an early bird rate. You save $500 off when you pay up front. We just did a video this week telling you all about it, all the details that you need to know about the course. It's a course in ancient astrology, and it helps you if you want to learn how to read charts for other people. And even if it's just a hobby for you, this is something that gives you a really structured approach to learning classical ancient Greek astrology, and you can learn about the spiritual philosophy that ancient astrologers had, which is a blend from both the East and the West. It's a beautiful way of developing astrology in your life, even just for your own practice. So check it out on my website, nightlightastrology.com. If you guys have any questions, please feel free to email us at info@nightlightastrology.com. And I hope you have a wonderful weekend. Talk to you later, everyone. Bye.